Great. Welcome to the Genetic Genius, Adora Winquist. I'm so excited to have you as a guest on my podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lulu. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Yes. So before we dive really deep into, we have so much fun stuff to talk about today. I'd love for you to tell our listeners just a little bit about your background, your kind of story, how you got to this place where you are right now on our beautiful planet.
Okay, thanks. Wow. So I would say that from a very young age, I felt intimately connected with nature. It was truly one of the places where I felt the most safe and the most alive, and where I really could listen and feel with my heart. Um, and then flash forward to being in my late teens, and I had a bit of a health crisis where every year, twice a year, I would get bronchitis brought about from allergies. And I had moved down to Cape Cod. So it was the first time that I was really on my own. I was 19, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have health insurance, and was really sick. And somewhere, I don't even recall where, I heard about herbs. So I went out and I bought a book and 5 different herbs. I bought hyssop and thyme, eucalyptus, some fresh ginger, and some licorice root. And I made a tea, and I was amazed by how quickly I healed. It was faster than any time that I had gotten medicine prescribed from the doctor, even the cough medicine that they had with codeine, which is supposed to stop any cough. And so I thought, well, this is a miracle. And so I wanted to learn more. So I started making other teas, and I started making tinctures, and having anyone in my friends or family or circle that would be a guinea pig and say yes. And even some of them were pretty gruesome tasting with bloodroot, and especially when my supply resources got dwindled down.
Yeah.
But from there, I found essential oils. And because I was always enamored by things that smelled as a child, the flowers and even the soil and the woods and the forest where I spent a lot of time growing up, I fell in love. And it became this instantaneous passion. And so I started mixing and blending, which kind of brought me back to earlier days of being at home and trying to escape from doing the dishes. After dinner, I would go into the bathroom, lock myself in there, and mix all my mother's perfumes and powders and all sorts of expensive sundries. And I guess those were the early days of my alchemy. So I was always interested in mixing things together and what could happen if you took one thing and created something greater from it. And so that mixing led me to starting my first business in my early 20s, but it also led me to travel and study to places like India, and going on my first aromatherapy journey there with a group in southern India, and being able to go out into the farm with the women at 5, 6 in the morning when the flowers are just opening, to be able to pick them, because every plant has to be harvested and then distilled within a specific and certain time frame to ensure that the full vital life force and gamut of chemical constituency is present. And so being able to pick the flowers in the fields with the women and smell them and have that full experience gave me an incredible appreciation, but even more than that, understanding of what it takes to actually plant something and then nurture it to the point of harvesting, and even at that point going to take that further to distillation. And so India was such a really huge part in my own opening from a spiritual perspective. And then spending some time in Egypt as well to study the mysticism there, and how aromatics were really intertwined into the ancient philosophy, and not just medicine, but a spirituality, which is a
Mm-hmm.
huge passion of mine. Um, so all of this really led me to studying vibrational medicine, and really working with the plants, and vibrational medicine became a dual passion that I intertwined in my product formulation for my businesses, but also my healing practice. And so it was right around this time where I'd heard about Reiki. And
Mm-hmm.
at that time, this was probably in the mid to late 90s, where Reiki was really one of the biggest modalities and most recognized form of energy healing. And I went to take my first class in New Hampshire and felt so green about it, and was amazed that after the attunement process, I started to see these colors around people. And I thought, this is really incredible. I want to know more about this. But not
Mm.
only do I want to know more, but I want to experience more. And so as I began to work with the vibration and energy of Reiki, not just with clients, but really with myself, I could see how things would shift, particularly from an emotional perspective, and things would open up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that additional passion, really, I found a yearning for more education, and began to study a lot of other modalities of vibrational healing and energy healing to see what was possible. And that, especially when you're combining the plants with the vibration, the synergy is so potent. The alchemy becomes so potent. And so ultimately, this brought me to the path of finding the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially a leader globally in teaching energy medicine, and teaching it through the auric field with a focus on psychodynamics and a commitment to personal process, which is so critical. Because as
Mm-hmm.
healers, we can only walk with someone as far as we've gone in our own healing journey. And so doing the personal process work is such an important commitment of mine, not just from a healership perspective, but as a commitment to a human evolving on this planet,
Mm-hmm.
and really wanting to self-actualize in my own life, right? That self-mastery is something that's possible in this lifetime, and that we ultimately have the opportunity to live life from a limitless perspective once we come through and we're able to change um, our story by healing our
Mm-hmm.
trauma, by healing at the DNA level of the mother and father heritage and bloodlines that we carry from the past to the present. So I guess that's a bit of a nutshell, my story.
Yeah, it sounds like the plants really, put a little seed and just like help grow you into who you are today in your journey, which sounds like you've been all over the world and learned lots of different aspects to help create who you are now. And we're going to dive
Yes.
deep into all those little subjects that you talked about during our talk today. And first, I'd love to talk about aromatherapy, because I know that's one of your biggest passions. Can
Yes.
you explain to our listeners just like what is aromatherapy, and essential oils? You talked a little bit about kind of like the essence of the plant and the flower, but
Mm.
just more kind of like, what are the essential oils and how do they elevate our body and and our consciousness and with healing?
Great. Thank you. That's one of my favorite questions of all time. So, from a broad perspective, aromatherapy is the art and science that gives us the ability to um, learn from education as well as intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the art and science of using essential oils that are extracted from aromatic plants, typically by steam distillation. Although our citrus oils are produced by expression, where the peels are pressed for the essential oil, just like if you were to cut a lemon and rub the peel through your fingertips, that aromatic that's released is the
Mm-hmm.
essential oil. And then we do have exotics that are typically produced either by enfleurage or solvent extraction. For some of the flowers like jasmine, and even gardenia, that you can't produce the oil through steam distillation. So essentially, these essential oils are biochemically active. Their chemical constituents can range in the upwards of over 300, like with rose essential oil, which makes it just impossible to replicate
Right.
chemically.
Yeah.
And thankfully for that. But they really contain the quintessence of the plant, right? It's the most volatile chemical extract, and it contains everything from the vital life force, the vibration, the sacred geometry, the wisdom that's in the plant, as well as a full range of chemical constituents that have affinities with certain aspects of our physiology, right? Like lavender essential oil, which of course is commonly known and understood to be calming,
Right.
relaxing. Why? It's because the chemical constituents are known as a nervine. And the main chemical components of linalool and linalool acetate have that nervine and relaxing and sometimes sedative properties.
Great. And so when someone, I love your explanation of, using the whole plant, because that's such a big part of, when our cells can see something coming in as a whole plant, it's like we use them the whole vibration, which is what I think you were talking about, which I love that part, and how do people use them? So they get an essential oil, that either they're super excited about because someone told them, or you recommended, or they're just like, oh, I want to try this. And then how do they use it?
That's a great question. And to answer that, I really want to back up for a moment, because this is where sometimes in this field, too little information or education can really be a disservice. And there is so much information out there. When I first started there, the market wasn't flooded with products and education, and the MLMs have really contributed a great deal in this field to expose the masses to the wonderful potential, healing potential of the plants. And with that, there's been a lot of information that is questionable. So the first thing I want to say is that wherever you're going to purchase your essential oil or your essential oil product, but in particular your essential oil, that knowing your supplier is really key. Why? Because adulteration is rampant in this field. Over 90% of the essential oils that are distilled every year are produced for the flavor and fragrance industry, right? And remember, this is a dynamic where we're in partnership with Mother Nature. So there's only a certain number of plants that are grown and can be distilled every year, with a significantly growing demand. And so if you don't know where the plant is produced, right, or harvested, where it's coming from, its own roots per se, there are so many points in between before it becomes a product, either an essential oil or a product, a spray, something like this that you would purchase at a store. So think about this. So you have one perspective where your plant is grown and harvested, and then we'll call that point A. And then before we have point Q, where you can purchase it, there are all of those stops along the way where the resulting essential oil can be cut and stretched and otherwise adulterated with synthetics. And so what happens when you have a product that is in part or wholly synthetic, it's not going to have the therapeutic value. It might have a nice aroma. It might have the benefit of aromacology, right? Something that smells good, makes us feel good, but it's not going to have the biology. It's not going to have the full range of not just vibration, but the chemicals that offer the medicine to us. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the beauty of the plant kingdom is that it offers us medicine in every form, right? Every form of our physicality, our emotions, our mental, our thoughts, and our spiritual connection.
Mm-hmm. So
And
true.
so,
Mm-hmm.
so just a little backup before we talk
Yeah,
about how
perfect.
essential oils can be used, because um, you know, the truth is, building the relationship with the plants is really how we're able to open and access and allow the full spectrum of their wisdom and medicine to benefit us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then as it benefits us and as we grow and we heal and we evolve, then we can bring that to the world in a greater way. So for those of your listeners that are like, okay, I really want to make something myself, or I
Mm-hmm.
want to go out and buy a lotion, I would say, again, knowing your supplier is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But how do the essential oils work? The most potent and immediate way is via inhalation. So
Mm-hmm.
why? I mean, think about the proximity of the nose, right?
So
The
close to the
olfactory
brain.
bug, so close to the brain, right? And really, that our limbic system within the brain, one of the
Mm-hmm.
most primitive aspects of our brain, that regulates tremendous areas of our physiology, mood, memory, emotion. So when you inhale the right essential oils in the right context and formulation, you can literally not only transform how you feel in the moment, shift your whole trajectory of
Mm-hmm.
emotional response, right? Which allows us to repattern the way that we respond to ourselves primarily, and then, of course, each other. But we can literally not only change how we feel in the moment, but we can shift and open our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We can open our energy centers, vortexes, our meridians to receive more life force, more energy, more light, right? More healing vibration through inhaling the essential oils, which, um, unlike many modalities of medicine, pass the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
And so inhalation, and when I'm out there and either recommending products or essential
Mm-hmm.
oils or teaching or working in a healing practice or working my own healing practice,
Mm-hmm.
inhalation is the first way that I'll use an essential oil, because it gets the train moving, so to speak.
Right.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. Everything activates.
Exactly. That's so well said, Dr. Lulu. And so what else can we do? We can have sprays, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we can not only shift how our room or personal environment or office or car smells, but we can add those antibacterial, antimicrobial aspects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did you know that every essential oil is in some respect antibacterial?
That's
Right?
amazing.
Antimicrobial.
Yeah.
And why? It's the plant's way of communicating with its environment, whether it's either
Mm-hmm.
attracting pollinators, repelling bugs. It
Yeah.
enhances its own ability for survival, but not
Survival of the
just
fittest.
survival. Yeah. And the way that I look at it, it allows us to be able to move from our own personal triad of survival, right? Surviving, to
Mm-hmm.
actually thriving.
Right.
And the plant medicine is really such a powerful gateway for that for us. So yes, we can use them through inhalation. We can make sprays to
Mm-hmm.
enhance not only the aroma, but the feeling, the ambiance of our environment, but
Mm-hmm.
bringing the chemical components, right? If the oil is antibacterial, antifungal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anti-inflammatory, all of these ways that we can use the essential oils, even through our diffusers, right? So we're
Yeah.
adding that medicine to our environment, which right now, of course, enhancing the strength of our immune systems is such a vital and crucial part of our lives
Mm-hmm.
as we move through the great shift of this planet.
Right.
Um, you know, we can use essential oils topically. Of course, I'm always going to recommend diluting it, because some essential oils can either be photosensitive, like a citrus oil like bergamot or lemon,
Or
which means if
cinnamon.
you, or cinnamon. Right, we can have sensitivity to cinnamon.
Right.
I know you have great sensitivity to
Right.
cinnamon.
For our listeners, it will make me break out like, like red
Exactly.
all over.
Right. And phototoxic, if we use that essential oil and go out into the sun, we can have a very significant burn or breakout. I had a good friend of mine who loved grapefruit oil so much. We were on a trip to Bermuda.
Ooh.
And before I could say anything or realize she did it, she had took the pure essential oil, barely diluted, and put it all over her body.
Oh my gosh.
And so she ended up with not just a burn, but with a rash that still to this day, about 15 years later, she experiences when she goes out into the sun.
Wow.
Why? Because the essential oil can get into the tissue, right? And when we have that reaction, it can stay there. And so we are sensitized for life.
Right.
I had a similar experience, not with the sun, not with the phototoxic aspects, but with the sensitizing aspects. I can remember when I first started using essential oils, I was so green. I barely knew the difference between a fragrance oil, right, a synthetic oil, and a true essential oil, right? And so that's the beauty of this journey of learning and experiencing. But I would add essential oils into my bath, and I added a very large number of drops of grapefruit to my bath. And after a while, I noticed the back of my legs were getting kind of itchy. It was very uncomfortable. And I thought, oh, well, I've heard that grapefruit is really excellent for removing fat, right? It's actually a great oil when used in the appropriate context for lymphatic drainage, right? For circulation, and can be used for weight loss in the right context. But I thought, well, this must be fantastic. But what I realized later was, no, I was not losing fat cells back there. I was becoming sensitized. And still to this day, I can't use grapefruit topically on my skin.
Your body
without that same reaction, right?
Yeah.
So there are really important caveats to using essential oils on the skin. You know, it's said that lavender essential oil can be used safely on the skin. Most of the times that's true. I really advocate for having a bottle in your first aid kit because it's so wonderful for burns. In fact, back in the 1940s, when the French chemist Gat Fawcett was working in his lab, he burned himself severely, and the closest liquid was a vat of lavender essential oil, which he plunged his arm into. And he had real no noticeable signs of a burn, right? No redness, pain, swelling. And so this was one of the first areas of discovery of the power medicinally of essential oils. But people can still have an idiosyncratic reaction where they can have a negative reaction where most people wouldn't. So what does that mean? It means dilute prior to skin use, or do a patch test, and where you would put a drop of that essential oil there, put a Band-Aid over it, wait for 24 hours and see your response. So safety is really important because just because something is natural doesn't mean it's always safe, right? It means that we want to have the appropriate, not just understanding, but respect for the potency of the medicine that the plants offer us.
Yeah. Oh, that's so key. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's so key to understanding the relationship of plants and having the knowledge of the use of the plant. And I loved how you talked about the different, aspects of the actual constituents. And I want to go back and talk about something because it was like ding, like a little light bulb. So when you use a plant and say you have a reaction, let's talk about the cellular kind of like imprint or the cellular memory, something that, can stay in your body, but can it also, start to stir up something else in your body that might have remembered. And then the other aspect, which I want to remember before I forget, is that, we're talking about the cells and they have this phospholipid bilayer, and we're using something that's an oil. Do the cells then have that memory because of the oil layer around it? they're like, oh, okay, I can, absorb this into my system because it's an oil and I'm recognizing it in a different way.
I love that. I love that because it really speaks to the potency of the plant kingdom to be able to offer us cellular level healing, right? Healing from my perspective is holographic in nature, right? We have all of these trillions of cells within our body, right? And how do they communicate to each other? They communicate through biophotons, right? Which essentially in quantum physics, it's light, right? We are light beings. Our cells are communicating to each other through light. And our cells are communicating holographically through to the energy fields of our body that hold everything that we've experienced, past, present, still unfolding, right, for the future. And the same is true of our cellular consciousness, that I see them as these beautiful portals to the past, right, through our DNA, that open up these portals that move all the way through the bloodline of our mother and our father and our mother's mother and father, and so on and so on and so on, all the way back to the point of origination. So what does that mean? That means every experience, every physical experience, mental, emotional, spiritual, not just from the point of our conception, but all the way back through the power of our cellular consciousness, is held there, held in the auric field. And when we have the plants that can communicate because of their very likeness, right, and similarity, as an ally to the cellular consciousness, that their vibration and their medicine can come in and shift things, not just from a place of physiological trauma, but from a place of emotional pain that's been carried through the lineage, from places of spiritual separation, of isolation, of all of the things that genetically that we've held. When we think about, right, I'm very Irish, my maiden name was O'Connor. Everything that's been carried through that line, whether it's the imprinting cellularly of lack and starvation from the potato famine, or the pains and struggle with addiction because of the heritage challenge with alcohol and other substance. Like, these things are all held within us, and here comes the wisdom of the plants being able to work synergistically, right? So what do we mean? We talk about synergy so often in plant medicine and essential oils. It means that when we're combining a group of essential oils or plants, that their effect is more potent than using an isolate, right? And so as we're blending with specific intention to come in to the cellular level, we can bring all sorts of elements, right, through through that perspective, and bringing that medicine in to communicate with the cells in a place of remembrance, right? And that's one of the things that I love about essential oils, is that they are coded vibrationally with ancient wisdom, and just like our cells are, right?
Exactly.
Just like our DNA is, because it's not all just trauma that's held there,
right?
It's great gifts and great wisdom that is held there, just waiting for us to bring our own healing potency to a critical mass or a tipping point where everything can open up for us, and we can start to look at life beyond the limitation of our blinders of perception, right? Perception being 9/10 of our reality, that's crafted from all of our past experience, right? And all of the past experience held within our DNA. And so using the plants and other forms of vibrational medicine not just opens up our cells, but opens up our ability to see that we can live beyond a third dimensional reality, right? Living beyond the matrix,
right,
of limitation, to a perspective of being able to cultivate the life that we've always dreamt of living, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
held within our soul seat, our higher higher heart, with all of
Mm-hmm.
the longings for this life to be actualized, to be realized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of our evolutionary process, collectively, and planetarily as well. And not just that, but I think when we can open our cellular consciousness to receive the healing potency of the plant, it also communicates holographically to the plants, like, we're here, we're open, we
Mm-hmm.
remember the power of your healing and the ability that you have. And it allows them to communicate globally to each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? Activating more of their potency and medicine. It's kind of like the 100 monkey
Mm-hmm.
syndrome in
Mm-hmm.
terms of quantum reality, quantum physics, that there's been studies done where, like, when about, right, it doesn't have to be exact, the 100th member of a species learns something new, that
Mm-hmm.
the entire species gets that download.
Right.
Right. And so the more that we're able to open to the healing potency of the plants, the more the plants are remembering that they can shine that in a greater way for the
Mm.
benefit of all of us, right? For the most benevolent good. So I might have gone off on a tangent there. I hope that answers your question.
No, it's perfect. And there are so many little highlights that you said that were so just profound and beautiful. And I especially loved the part where you were talking about, our plants have been here for so long. They have so much knowledge, so much memory, and we're just tapping like just a tiny, tiny bit into their knowledge. But when we open up, and the essential oils, from what you said, really help us to open up to be able to receive that knowledge. And one thing I wanted to address too is that you were talking about, we can use essential oils for opening us up from, past and present, but that picture of the future seems like, we're just tapping into this whole new reality of like creating our new place and time, and
Yeah.
we're living in the future. We just think we're living in the present, but we're like, because right now we're already there in the next moment. And so it sounds like
Yes.
essential oils can then help catapult us, I guess is a good word, into that next reality so quickly.
Dr. Lulu, I love that you mentioned that. And, one thing I love about this interview is your shared passion for the plants, right? And even in this moment, it's, what I mentioned about opening up through this communion and communication that we're having, there's an opening and a shift that's happening through that. So I just wanted to take a moment to honor that, and from a place of gratitude. And then also, if we're talking about creating or carving out the future of our dreams, gratitude is such an important intervention or alchemy along with that. It's like having a formula that uses essential oils, that uses vibration and intention. I'll go into that in a moment. And then gratitude really becomes the amalgamation for bringing our intention into form. And so, like, well, as a little to encapsulate, right?
Right.
So we have an intention. I have an intention for something that I want to create in my future. And maybe it's a new product, right? To serve in a certain way for the greater good of humanity. Maybe it's a certain relationship, a love relationship. Maybe it's something in terms of prosperity or abundance or anything along those lines. So you can have an intention for anything. Maybe it's about, I really want to get myself fit, right? Be in the best shape of my life. Maybe I want to have the mental clarity that I know would propel me forward in every area of my life. So we have an intention. And then we're going to choose an essential oil synergy, right? That is going to support us from not just an aromatic perspective, that's going to become the limbic connection, the lock and key an anchor for us to see that into the future and then
Mm-hmm.
bring that reality back to the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about the lock and key for a moment, so everyone has a really clear understanding. The limbic system works very much in that way. And so I'm sure you and your reader or your listeners have something in their lives that when they smell it, brings them
Mm-hmm.
back to the past. So for me, whenever I smell this scent combination of roses and lavender,
Mm.
it immediately brings me back to my grandparents' home. And my grandmother must have had like a soap or a lotion that had that same aromatic profile.
Mm-hmm.
So not only am I back there, I'm visualizing it, right? I
Right.
can see the kitchen, I can see the living room, the bathroom, the placement of everything in the house. But I can smell what was happening in the home. Her
Mm.
making turkey soup, the smell of wood of this particular piece of furniture that when she would open up the drawer and take out the pack of chewing gum, right? How that would smell. And even a step further, my body responds, right? Fully.
Mm.
Physically, I experience a sense of peace, of calm, of relaxation. Emotionally, I feel nurtured. I feel loved. I feel safe. And so when we have an essential oil combination, it can
Mm-hmm.
work for us in that same lock and key way. So you have your intention and you're going to craft out your essential oils. And your listeners, we can add a couple of recipes if you want, or a link to something if somebody wants to formulate something.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you would do is take your essential oil combination and inhale it as you are focusing on your intention,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that goal is, although I don't necessarily love the word goal.
Right.
I think intention is much more holistic and full and non-linear. As you're focusing on your intention, you're visualizing it. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not the only key, right? Once you have that visualization clear, you allow yourself, your body, your cells to respond to what it would feel like with that intention being fully actualized,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if it's, okay, I'm working on getting myself a little bit more fit, I'm going to visualize myself in a way where I know I'm feeling vibrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to allow myself to feel it cellularly with emotion of what that would feel like. Oh, wow. How freeing would that be? So much energy, so much excitement, right? Whatever that is that's attached emotionally to your intention, it's the emotion becomes the molding of the clay for your
Mm-hmm.
sculpture,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then after you felt it, you bring that feeling back to the present moment, right? When you're complete, you inhale your essential oil,
Mm-hmm.
blend again, and that completes the memory cell,
Nice.
right? And so now when you want to go back to that place, all you have to do is inhale that same combination of essential oils,
Mm-hmm.
which will bring you right back there, cementing that new reality until
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a reality, because it already is at some point,
Right.
right? And even as beautifully in those moments where you start to feel like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to happen because I can't see it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is when we go into that place, it's like stepping aside and moving away from the beautiful creation that's on its way to us. So
Mm-hmm.
that aromatic profile of essential oils allows us to come back into a place with an open heart to know that, okay, even if I can't see it, it's right around the corner, right?
Right.
It allows us to come back into a place of faith and to trust. And that gratitude is the last piece of saying, you know what? I'm so grateful that this has already happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that really brings the experience into a place of actuation in a way that we can't do when we just think about something, right?
Right. Yeah.
Our emotion, our heart, our gratitude is such an important element in that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love how essential oils help us to be in that forward step in time. You know, it's because
Yeah.
we have such a pattern of just like, of, I don't know, it's like asking for something. Let's say, for instance, you were talking about being fit, you know, like, oh, I want to lose weight. Well, it's like, you really have to visualize it completely for it to be, you have to really believe it. And then you can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to be fit tomorrow. And so,
Right.
you know, it's like, you have to really step into it, like you were talking about, and having that component of the plant kingdom and the essential oils to really, it's almost like you like bathe your cells in this new reality, you know,
Totally.
and then to have that belief set in, and it's all, I feel like we're stepping into this new place in time with people understanding that belief system, because it's
Yes.
you know, creating your new reality is so easy. You know.
It really is. And I think now more than ever, when we're looking around us and evaluating what's going on in the world, remembering that we have the ability to co-create
Mm-hmm.
not just the reality for ourselves and our families and loved ones and friends, but for the entire world around us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like that quote of Gandhi
Mm-hmm.
is so profound and also, really out there in mainstream media, that we have to be the change that we want to see. The peace
Mm-hmm.
starts here,
Mm-hmm.
right? The love starts here. True transformation and abundance and healing starts by walking through the gateway of being able to have love and compassion for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? The war, the violence, it's all within us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have these alchemical interventions at our fingertips, like the plants, the herbs, the essential oils, the crystals, the different modalities of vibrational medicine, sacred geometry, to come in and bring the healing to our own triad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I very much look at life in this way, that we have this beautiful treasure map
Mm-hmm.
from our childhood and family dynamics and constellation. And in that childhood map, we can see all of the places of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's as if we can look at that snippet from our childhood, and even if we look at life from a past life perspective of, okay, there are certain things that have been unresolved in past lives that I've carried into this one to bring healing to, for the evolution of my soul. All of that's still seated in
Mm-hmm.
our family, our childhood treasure map. And so it becomes a way that we can view our path and our own healing spiral as a path of excavating our unique light and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing the places of healing, not just to our younger consciousness, our child consciousness, but the places of masculine and feminine, male and female, like we talked about through our genetics. All
Mm-hmm.
of that's held within us.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can focus on our inner terrain and bringing light and healing and awareness and understanding and compassion to that, then we can really begin to see that in our external reality taking shape and form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because until we bring that healing to ourselves, the past still projects its reality, right? From like a movie projector. All of the
Right.
places of pain and struggle and separation and darkness that are still held within us are like these movie projectors that project in our outer reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing the healing through the plants and through the vibration to have a greater understanding of who we are allows us to understand why we're here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
every person has that unique gift. I like to call it a soul purpose, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
a firm believer that our soul work really is our soul work, our primary work, because we've come here to the planet at this juncture of time and space for the growth of our soul, which as we bring that greater light from our soul to the world, then that shifts the whole dynamic of the world around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can really be that change that we want to see, where we want to see peace, where we want to see community, where we want to see unity, compassion, care,
Mm-hmm.
abundance, right? And so I think that the plants and the other aspects of vibrational medicine are crucial right now for our evolution as a race, for humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and really for all of the kingdoms of life on the planet, like the plant, like the mineral, like the
Mm-hmm.
animal, and of course human, to be able to awaken to the divine consciousness within us, which allows us to come from and to a united perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we have right now. And so having a podcast like you do, where you're really bringing this information to the masses, is so necessary, so
Mm-hmm.
germane to
Mm-hmm.
humanity right now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's really interesting how when we step into that place of shift, we can then have all the tools around us. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, we have the being aware of having the animals or the minerals or the vibrations of the plants, or, that when we step into the place of moving forward and seeing the new reality, then it's like it's like almost like the like you said, the movie projector, but I like to think of it as like these goggles. It's like, oh, the like the little like zip, the new frame has opened up and you have a new vision, and then you have like, oh, today I can see like a different vision, and so as we're creating this new reality with using the tools, it like just opens the expansion up even more for us to be able to learn more.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think about, especially being in my now mid to late 40s,
Mm-hmm.
how much of an impact can I have on
Mm-hmm.
the collective consciousness, on humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And working in greater partnership, symbiotic partnership with the plants and
Mm-hmm.
the minerals and the kingdoms of life here, to really create a legacy of light and healing for the planet after I'm
Mm-hmm.
gone,
Mm-hmm.
and for my children and their children and all the children, to be able to see the shift in a way that even I can't right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of evolution,
Mm-hmm.
and that, and really density, right? Because the time that we were born on the planet, and the density of the planet because of the consciousness and what was happening at that time, has great effect within our programming, right? And our belief
Mm-hmm.
system, our constructs,
Mm-hmm.
and our auric field, and our cells.
Right.
Right? The cells
Mm-hmm.
are the terrain, the terroir, just like wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's infused with everything collectively going on, not just within the microcosm, but the macrocosm too, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
really see life from that perspective. And so as our children are becoming the next leaders of the planet, it's
Mm-hmm.
really up to us to give them the best platform to catapult off.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the best ways that we can do that is to be dedicated to our own healing process,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that I do see that as a spiral, because it never ends as long as we have physical form.
Right.
Right. There's always greater consciousness until we reach that point of enlightenment and nirvana, and we can stay there. Right. Because
Right.
it's possible we can
Right.
dip in.
Mm-hmm.
I've had it small handful of times in this life, and particularly through meditation practice, where for a moment, everything in the cosmos and the universe has made complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the same for my life. I could see it all, and everything was perfect. Right? And everything was connected. Everything, everyone was connected. But what would it be like if we could have that level of awareness and understanding and vibration for more of a sustainable period?
Right. Not
How
just
would
like a
that
blip.
shift the planet?
Yeah.
Right? Not just like, and then like, oh, what happened? I'm back. I'm triggered by, this person, this relationship,
right.
because I'm still carrying the pain of the past. Right. So how do we change that? We change that by going in, diving in. You mentioned diving. It's kind of like that. I think that's a great analogy. Diving in with an intention and energy of love into our own cellular consciousness, right? To be able to bring that light into the places that are still held within us of darkness and separation. And, everything is the quest for love. Everything, every being on this planet is on a quest for love. And we carry places of profound forgetting within us.
Right. Yeah.
Forgetting that we are looking for that. Forgetting how to do that. Forgetting how to love ourselves first. How do we love someone else if we can't love ourselves? Right. So I think it always comes back to that place of love. And ultimately, our love is what can transform anything and everything.
Right. Yeah.
Which becomes, the heart becomes our true, when our hearts can become our true GPS, what a different life we can live.
Yeah. When we live from there instead of from up here.
Yeah. And from the center, right? From that place, not from the place of distortion of like, okay, I need love. I want love. I'm going to manipulate in any way to get it. Right. But when we can, through the connection of our own love, self-love, and compassion, access the center of our hearts, that 0 point field of that dimension of limitless creation, that's through here. Right. It's not out here somewhere in the world. And it's not going to be filled by anything outside of us. Right. And when we can come back to the remembrance of everything that we need to heal is within us, and then I believe the pathway opens up, right? And the teachers show up, and the plants show up, and the alchemical tools and intervention show up, right? Our allies in life, right? And I can say this to you as an ally.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. When we're open, it's just like a bazillion doors open up. Not just one.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about your formulation kind of technique, if you want to call it a technique, or method, I think is a better word than technique, because it's so profound and different, unique. So I'd love for you to take a moment to just explain kind of your method to our listeners. And I'd love that.
Thank you. So I'll start by saying this. It begins with an open heart. I know that I don't ever blend a product if I'm in a place of emotional reaction. Right. For me, when I sit down to formulate, it's as if I'm preparing for a client, right? It's like entering the temple of the beloved, the holy of holies. It is a supremely sacred practice for me. And it is a practice because it evolves, right? My work has evolved in so many forms in over 2 decades. So it involves preparing my container, right? Aligning myself, opening myself, clearing myself, clearing my energy field, clearing my mind, aligning my hara line. Our hara line is that line of effortless intention that opens us to the dimension of effortless creation. And then it really becomes a fluid prayer where I invite in all of the light beings and frequencies that I work with, my allies. I had one teacher that would call them the upstairs department, but all of the great vibrational beings that are my allies that come and create sacred circle with me, and opening up to the wisdom of the plants and the minerals, because all of the blends that I create are infused vibrationally with different gem or flower essences and homeopathic potencies that allow us to come into the very core miasma of what we're longing to heal. The places within our cells and our energy field where the trauma becomes calcified, which you were mentioning before, where the plants have such a beautiful way to come into that gently and easily to open up the life force that's held there. So after I've set up my container and open up the frequencies to be able to synergize or alchemize to create that alchemy, I listen, right? So I have an intention, okay, I'm going to create this formula for this purpose, which is not just physical, but holistic, right? And encompasses all of us, because that is the true essence of healing, holistic healing. And then I'll hear. So there's a voice that I hear. And so, you know, so many of us, our HSP or high sense perception comes in different ways. Some people are very visual. Some people have direct knowing. They just know things intuitively. Some are kinesthetic, right? Very feeling, or empaths. And some people are clairaudient. So for me, like, I'll hear 5 drops of this oil, 6 drops of this oil. And it's very, it's like being out of space and time. You know, it's about, for me, it feels like accessing this place or dimension, or it's kind of difficult to articulate. That is, there's just no limitation. And this is a beautiful thing, especially when we're looking to bring light and healing to places within the collective consciousness of distortion, right? But into the emotions where so much of our trauma is held, and into places within our physiology that, from our mind's perspective, we might not have the understanding of what's possible. How could it be possible to heal this sustainably within an individual, within a group, within the collective,
within the planet,
within the So allowing the mind to kind of just be left at a place of rest allows us to be able to open ourselves to a place of limitless potential, where whatever is encapsulated in the molecules of the formula, whether it's a formula with water or oil or what have you, so many different mediums, gels or lotions, having the blending be done, and then to have the frequency locked in. And there's certain cosmic frequencies, or I see them as templates that can be accessed and then anchored and locked into the frequency and the molecules of the product. So that's kind of a snippet of my process as a formulator. And I find that it's always evolving. It's always shifting or iterating in some facet as I am healing on my own journey, right? And becoming more aware and alive, right? And connected. because there's so many opportunities for us to open, right? So many points that even in this moment, my mind can't recognize or pinpoint.
Right. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that great explanation. It's just really powerful to hear a different way of formulating, because I think a lot of people, if you, I don't know, make a cake,
Yes.
right? You're like making the chocolate or the butter, the eggs, whatever you're going to do. But, it's a different aspect of formulating, and so I love that you were able to explain that in a way for our listeners to really connect into that process, because it's so powerful.
I think that is one of the biggest opportunities that isn't necessarily taught or you won't read in a book. I mean, you can pick up a book about plants or essential oils or crystals, and you can read many of the benefits, right, or affinities. But the true full spectrum of healing comes when we can build an intimate relationship with the plant or the mineral or the animal, and we can open our being to communicate and commune directly with them. Right? And that's when the medicine can become very expansive and also focused, also
Right.
specific.
Yeah. Two things
In a
together as
way,
one.
yeah, in a way that you can't pick up a book and find that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So powerful. And also, so let's talk a little bit, since we're talking about formulating, let's talk about our line together, because of course we're going to. So I'd love for you to talk about your perspective about, so you talked about the formulating, and the Zenergy Medicinals line is all about the DNA, which is what we've been talking about today. So if you could talk about your process of the formulating in relationship to the cells and activating and detoxing, nourishing them.
Yeah. This to me is so profound. And I'm not just saying this because this is our line, because I've created hundreds and hundreds of products through the years. But from the perspective as an healer, intuitive healer, and formulator, I think the offering that we have is so potent because it addresses that triad, right? The triad of the DNA from the perspective of detox, nourish, activate. Because we can't, it's like, okay, I really want $1 million right now. Or I really want to heal this place of chronic disease within my body. Whatever the intention is. If we're trying to bring in that intention to the cells, to the energy fields, to the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body that hasn't been cleansed and open, how can that stick? How can that seed germinate?
Right.
And not only germinate, but flourish. So the detox aspect is so critical because we have to clear out the old to make way for the new. Right? Whether it's the cellular debris, whether it's the emotional dross or density, the belief system of limitation, right? Because as much as I might want something, if at my core, at my cellular core, at my spiritual core and apex, I don't believe that's possible, it certainly isn't possible.
Right.
Right. So the medicine that we're creating from the essential oil perspective and the botanicals and all of the medicine to come, first, the detox is critical to clear out to make way for the new. And then the nourish. Why is the nourish so important? Well, if we clear something out, but we haven't fed the soil,
right,
if we haven't replaced it,
sponge.
if we haven't replaced it with something, that negativity, that distortion, dysfunction, dis-ease has the propensity and the patterning, right?
Right.
To grow back, to come back, to resurface.
Right.
But when we nourish it from a perspective of love, right? And that's really what the nourishment is.
Right.
It's creating a healthy terrain for the new intention to flourish, right? So it's filling that space and preparing it. I like to think of it as like, okay, now that I've pulled up the roots, right, and the weeds of what was taking up all the space in my garden, now I'm going to prepare the soil. I'm going to fill it with all of the right nutrients so that my seeds can grow in a way that they're designed to. Plants, right, are designed to flourish abundantly. And that is true for us as humans, right? Our blueprint, from whether you want to call it divine consciousness or source, whatever word that you have for that, we are designed for abundance, right? For vibrancy, for health, for harmony, for unity, for love, for connection, for passion, for benevolence, right? So we have to prepare ourselves from that by nourishing. And that's when we can activate, right, our intention. Whether it's that $1 million, whether it's that vibrancy, whether it's deepening health in a relationship, right? That's when we can bring in the activation source from the plants and the vibration. So,
right.
Ignition.
Like fireworks.
Ignition. Right.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, now I can see that really happening in a sustainable way. Right. And this is why we come back and look at a lot of the different modalities of healing where sustainable change isn't actualized.
Right.
Right. Because to really have that sustainable level of shift and dynamic and new story, right? The new story is all of our intentions for health, harmony, love, passion, manifestation, abundance, success, you name it. It's because we haven't gone through and cleared and prepared ourselves for that to be the new way of the future.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Oh yeah, I love that. I'm so excited. I love our line. And, you spoke about it just beautifully about the cells and, it was reminding me of just like why the typical medical model with helping people it's not working anymore. It's because it's like sugarcoating everything, and if we're drinking the sugar juice or whatever, it's like I'm into like Alice in Wonderland in the like take this pill and then poof, like you shrink and wait, what happened? I'm not myself anymore. Where's like grasping for the straws, grasping for the light, of the tunnel to bring you back out next to the tree, to the forest or the lake. And so,
oh my gosh, I love that analogy.
Until we are able to clean the cells, nourish the cells, activate the cells fully, it's like you're just taking something for nothing, which I think happens to so many people. Like, oh yeah, I took this supplement, or I took this, or like you were saying with the essential oils, I used this essential oil, but nothing happened. I'm like, well, there's lots of reasons why.
It's like the Matrix, right? We have the choice with the pill.
Right. Exactly.
Like, why do I keep finding myself in the Matrix? Well, what does the Matrix represent? It represents our own vicious cycles and patterns, right? And so if we're still in those patterns, then we're still in the old story, the old way, down the rabbit hole. Right. One of my teachers used to say, we're either in presence, right? Present moment, or we're in pattern of the past. And, I think that, and this is one of the most beautiful things that, as a naturopathic physician, you paving the way with your model, this, and right, which is rooted from naturopathic medicine, but has so many nuances and imprints of your unique light and quintessence and gifts and soul purpose, to really be able to support not just individuals, but the masses in their healing journey. And, of course, we mentioned our product line, and I would really be remiss without mentioning our book, because I do feel like, as much as it's a gift of transcendence, right? Everything that we have experienced along our journey in this life, to be able to bring that together in a transcendent offering for the greater good of humanity. But I truly do feel that it's revolutionary in its versatile and comprehensive way of addressing personal growth, addressing healing at the DNA level, addressing the fact that we both and all have the ability to self-actualize, right? To achieve self-mastery, to not just excavate, but embody our life purpose, our soul purpose. Yeah. So it is truly a dream come true.
I know.
Right. And so, the truth is, what one person can do, what we're doing together, everyone can do.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be like a little plant the seed, like you were talking about earlier, nourishing the garden and planting the seed. And together, I think we both have such passion for nourishing the planet. It's like, it's not just, it's our mission, it's like some people are just like, their mission is, I don't know, to drive the truck around the neighborhood and deliver packages, which is so great and important. We need
those packages.
We need those packages. But, when you have the vision that we have together to create this whole different aspect for people, because we can see the change, because you and I, have like I was saying with those goggles, we have with the vision. And so then, like with the book, with our products, being able to help people then have the vision. It's like, look at what you can do when you have these beautiful tools and open up all levels of your body to this different place and time of healing.
That's so beautifully said, Dr. Lulu. I love it.
I know we could talk for a bazillion hours, but I'm going to be conscious of our listeners and our time today. But I want you to talk about a couple more specific things. So tell us about the Divine Feminine and your classes that you have, and a little bit about that.
Great. Thank you. The journey of the Divine Feminine is so personal for me. It is, my healing spiral has been entrenched in this process. And in my late teens and early 20s, I became very ill with endometriosis, although it took a couple of years to get diagnosed. And that journey was really powerful for me, in that I had never experienced pain at that degree, debilitating pain. And I think when we experience chronic pain and disease, there is a loss of self-identity, self-connection, and really self-empowerment. And it gives us a completely different perspective on life. And there was a time where, and I didn't realize this until later, but I had adhesions from my uterus to my stomach. So every time I ate, I would throw up. And so it was a very challenging time. And even in the most difficult of those times, there was this voice. It was a deep, feminine, kind of almost crone-like voice that would reassure me. that I was going to be okay.
Mm.
And it was the most comforting thing because I couldn't find comfort from
Mhm.
anything or anywhere else at that
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And so it brought me deeper into my study of essential oils, of
Mhm.
vibrational medicine, of things like nutrition, acupuncture, chiropractic that I hadn't experienced before.
Mhm.
And it brought me deeper into an exploration. Why, as women, do we have this?
Mm.
And an understanding of my own early childhood development, right? Back to my
Mhm.
own treasure map, and ways that through my past, I had really pushed away the feminine, pushed away my mother.
Mhm.
And in doing so, pushed away my own feminine aspects to rely more with my masculine nature. And
Mm.
that became the way that I operated in life. Um, Pushing, using
Mhm.
will to make things happen, force, being much more willful than receptive, spending much more time here than feeling,
Mhm.
and pushing myself past the points of what I knew were possible, but learning how to do that physically. And so I began to understand that through this healing crisis, part of my true healing was to find my own way back to the divine feminine. So
Mm.
that became part of my healing journey. Then it became the women that would come to see me as
Mhm.
clients had similar issues, right? Whether
Mhm.
it was belief system, emotion, mental, or physiological, right? Things like infertility. Um, and so I immersed myself in the study
Mm.
of the divine feminine and the goddess, and invited healing within myself,
Mhm.
and really held the intention, like, show me the way that
Mm.
that I can be a vessel or a channel for healing of the feminine, not just within me, but within my clients, within
Mhm.
these groups, but ultimately within the collective consciousness of humanity.
Right.
And so um, now I do a monthly goddess group. It's
Mhm.
called Igniting the Divine Feminine. And it's really a group for us to explore and excavate and own the places and aspects of the divine feminine
Mm.
that we have either forgotten, pushed away,
Mhm.
as a tool of empowerment, right?
Mm.
Finding ways to reconnect with our sensuality, with our intuition, with our creativity, with our receptivity. That when we have an intention for something that we want to create, we don't have to create from a place of force and will, right?
Mm.
That we can create from a place of intention and receptivity, that we have magic within us. And that when we connect to the place of the feminine and connect with our own wise woman
Mm.
nature, that things become possible that we never thought could be. And so every month there is a different goddess that we work
Mhm.
with, because every goddess brings a different type of healing intervention or
Mhm.
alchemy
Mhm.
into the circle. And we work with essential oils. Every month I create a formula for that goddess, and then it becomes a product available on my website where people can use it to um, either continue to anchor the
Mhm.
energies and attributes of the goddess that we worked with, or if they weren't in circle, to be able to invite in the remembrance of those aspects within them through working with the aroma and the vibration that's included within them. And so it's a joyful, passionate part of my work, and being able to witness
Mm.
and walk with women along their remembrance of the divine feminine, and to see how freeing it can
Mm.
be. Like, what does it mean to live life completely in freedom, right?
Mm.
To fully have the ability to express ourselves, to speak
Mhm.
up, not from a place of anger, right? But from a place of clarity, of truth, of strength, but also grace, right? And to me, that's one of the most beautiful gifts of the divine feminine, is the ability to do that, and to embody and shine the great beauty that we all have in all of our varied forms. Because it's not about being perfect,
right.
On the outside. It's about being true to ourselves. And, my partner said this really profound thing to me last night. And he said, true self-actualization is when you love and accept yourself for who you are, and all of that. And I thought, wow, that's super profound.
Super. Yeah.
And I think as women, the more that we can embrace the parts of ourselves that we hold judgment because of our past, because of the voices we heard growing up, because of media, because of what we see we should look like in magazines,
right,
or what we should have for designer labels or cars. But when we can access our true authentic self and voice and beauty, and then come together, not from a place of competition, that's old paradigm,
right,
that women have to be competitive. The new paradigm is that women come together in communion and community to support each other, because as women, we heal together. The Maya, the illusion, is that we have to do everything on our own. That's
right.
coming from the masculine perspective.
Yeah.
Right? But truly, we heal and we evolve and we elevate through elevating each other. Right? And by holding mirrors of the light and the beauty and the unique gifts that the other women in our lives and in our communities and in the world have. Right? And then we can remember, wow, I don't have to be in separation or competition. Your beauty reminds me of my beauty. And what would happen if we came together with our beautiful light? How much could we change, navigating from our hearts and our wise woman voices? Right? And that's also not to reject the masculine.
Right.
It's to embrace that, because true wholeness is embracing our masculine and feminine natures and allowing them to unite synergistically. That is true empowerment, right? And as women, rejecting the masculine is rejecting a part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we give birth to men, we raise men, we commune with men. And, true unity is that beautiful balance of the male and female within ourselves and in our relationships.
Yeah, the intertwining of those two together, like the DNA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love your goddess groups. They're just so powerful, and you're doing them online right now because of the COVID, or maybe for just as a new shift of things in general. How can people register for the classes on your website?
Sure. They can go to our website, adorewinquist.com. There's an attend calendar area, and the events are by donation, so you can come. You don't have to pay. Just come, bring yourself, bring your intention, share it with your friends. You can donate. There's a donate button on the website, and you can also donate via the link when you sign up. And then also, if you follow us on Instagram on the Tap Bio, super cool technology. One of the buttons there has the attend info as well for all of our events that are coming up.
Nice.
And, yeah.
That's great. And so, and the Instagram is at Adora Winquist.
At Adora Winquist.
Great.
Yes.
And
at Zenergy Medicinals.
Oh, yes. And at Zenergy Medicinals. Yes. Great. Adora, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the Genetic Genius podcast show today. I just loved having you here, and your knowledge is so empowering for our listeners.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Lulu. It's been a true honor. I love you dearly. I have such appreciation and respect for the great gifts and light that you bring to your clients and to your work and to the planet. And it is such a great gift to have found each other in this life and work
Yes.
co-creatively in
Yeah.
this way to bring all of this to the planet.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I look forward to all the many more projects we have coming down the pipe.
There's a lot of them.
A lot of them. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you so
Adora.
much.
Okay.
Bye.